Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the John Sitton Football Uncensored podcast with me, Joe Mealing, asking the questions to John. Today, we're going to talk about the end of the season, wrap up that, get John's views on a very odd season in terms of, COVID-19 and not being fans, but all very interested. The FA Cup and the Champions League. John, how's it going? I haven't seen you for a while.
Mate, yeah, I won't see you. You're happy wanderer, ain't you? You're the happy wanderer. You've done all the Wales in the West Country, ain't you?
Yeah, mate. What a lovely place. Never been there before, the Welsh borders, but very historical. I love the history. It's just full of fortresses, full of castles. And apparently it's still legal, whether this is an urban myth, but it's still legal to fire an arrow from England and kill a Welshman in Wales with a bow and arrow. Apparently that's still legal.
Is that right?
Apparently it could be an urban myth, but that's what I've heard. And I've always thought, oh yeah. But actually when you go there, you can see it's a proper sort of Mexican standoff there, You've got these massive castles looking across the valleys, sort of basically saying to the Welsh, this is our land. So yeah, all interesting stuff. Really
the countryside, I've been there a couple of 3 times, you know what I mean? Especially I remember it when I was a kid. Spectacular countryside. Yeah.
And actually you can see it's quite mystical there, I thought, and you can see where the Welsh spirit comes from. That sounds a bit, hopefully it doesn't sound patronising, because it's such a beautiful country. I don't know, there's a lot of rugby, but we go from sort of football pitches to rugby pitches as you cross the border. So yeah, quite a special place, to be fair.
Yeah, a lot of national pride.
Not national pride, yeah. Right, so we're going to try and squeeze all this in half an hour, but may overrun a little bit. But a lot to go through. Good time to conclude and hear your thoughts really on the season and how you think it panned out. Obviously, Man City sort of ran away with it in the end, but the top 4 was an interesting one. Obviously, Herr Tuchel done really well to get Chelsea in the top 4. Man United, I guess, solidified second, but interesting season. Then we can talk about Leicester and stuff in the FA Cup afterwards. But just thoughts on the season. How do you think it went? How does it fare and bode for next season? Obviously, the 3 that got relegated, we kind of knew about that a few months ago, probably, arguably even the first few months of the season. But interesting to your overall thoughts, really, John.
Well, firstly, very quickly, Joe, just sort of a quick hello and heads up and apology really to the people who can be bothered to subscribe to us, because we ain't spoke to them for a little while. Reasons being just to let them know you've had a break, and then I've been preoccupied elsewhere, and then this is the first time we've been able to get together, so to sort of put matters in order. Reach behind, little pat on the back, got the top 4 right. I mean, people are going to say, yeah, righto. There's no you don't need the brains of Lloyd George to predict that, but I called it when certain teams like Liverpool were adrift, although I did get 3 and 4 round the wrong way. I fancied Tommy Tickle to finish 3rd and Liverpool 4th. That's what I've christened him. Super Tommy Tickle. Yeah. Yeah, so that caught on the Twitter among a few Chelsea supporters. The relegation, again, sort of self-congratulatory pat on the back with regards to the bottom 3. It was predicted way back when we was doing it with Don and Alan before Lord Hudson broke away after Don shot away to Egypt. I said that Sheffield United, I fancy him to suffer second season syndrome because there hadn't been enough investment. I didn't fancy Fulham, don't matter how positive he was, Scott Parker, and he tried to talk things up with regards to trying to stay up, and they brought in a load of loan players. I said it'd be, regardless of what he goes on to achieve or not achieve, I think it'd be the biggest achievement of his managerial career if he keeps Fulham up. I don't fancy it. West Brom, it's a shame because I've stuck up for Sam on. I thought he was right because I've come up against his side when he was at Blackpool, and I think he never had enough credit for what he did with certain players at Bolton, and there was a certain level of borderline contempt and disrespect for his playing style, but he couldn't quite get him over the line and keep West Brom up. So it spoiled his record of coming in and firefighting and you know, not being relegated from the Premier League. Probably it's one of the last ones we'll see, I would think, of not, I'm loath to say traditional, but someone like English or UK or British who's come through the coaching system here and worked his way up in the Premier League. I think like what'll happen there, it'll only be a case of you're probably only getting a Premier League, not for reputation, but through promotion. So it's unlikely we'll see his ilk again.
That's an interesting point. Can I just pick up on that very quickly? Because he is the kind of very, you know, we spoke about blueprint on numerous episodes before. And I mean, if someone was to, most people in football would know what Sam Allardyce's blueprint is. You know, he does what he says on a tin, and it's very marketable. And there's almost a Sam Allardyce brand for clubs that are in trouble. All right, his brand's slightly been sullied because he's now been relegated, but previously he hadn't been relegated. So it's like, right, get Allardyce in. We know what we're going to get, and he can try and shore it up and sort it out. But do you think that kind of one size fits all approach, that sort of very solid blueprint that say Allardyce had, do you think that will go from the game once he retires? Do you know what I mean? But obviously Pulis was a bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, in no way, shape or form. I mean, if you look at the other end, people are going, which we're going to come to. People will go in my opinion, OTT, and I said, well, there's a name for it. Someone said about Tuchel being a borderline genius and this and that, and I said, well, there's a name for it. And he said, well, so he come back to me, one of the boys in UTAG, United Trade Action Group, in like the Black Cab, on Twitter. And I said, no, I'm going to save it for when I do the podcast with Joe. The bottom line is there's no embarrassment. And I think he's shown that, Guardiola in his own way. There's no embarrassment in giving top talent a structure or perceived top talent. So what I mean by that is like Premier League footballers, you know, there's no absolutely no embarrassment whatsoever in giving them a structure to work to. It's just unfortunately you couldn't get them over the line.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose it's more just on that keeping teams up. Because basically what I mean is once he goes, is there another manager around that you think, right, you're in trouble, Premier League, bring him in to shore it all up?
Moyes. He's gone 12 months. In 12 months, they've gone from flirting with relegation to Europe.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So you know, like a similar thing. Look, okay, I'll let the cat out. We was going to review the Champions League final. I'll let the cat out the bag now, right? Tuchel. They're going, hey, genius, he's this, he's that, He hasn't really played that different a formation to Frank Lampard. And then I said, there's a name for it. Because they've gone about him being a genius and about being this and being that. I said, yeah, there's a name for it. Basically, I'll tell you what it is. It's organisation / structure, discipline, and keeping your shape, which is how they won the Champions League final. They was impenetrable because they kept, and when you say things like that, it's just like it can almost be dismissed as a throwaway word or throwaway sentence or throwaway comment when you're a coach. But I remember saying it many times, but just before people were about to go out the dressing room door, the buzzer had gone, and you used to say, with all the rehearsals you've done during the week and everything you've done on the training field, okay, right, listen, guys, don't forget, first of all, run your knackers off for the calls, right? Which at the level I was at and with some of the individuals I was dealing with, that was definitely a wasted comment. Make sure you keep your discipline and keep your shape. Yeah. Right? It's not bionuclear physics or rocket science. You know, once you put that in place, then you know all it is something for them for the players to hang their ability on. But they just need little reminders. And I just don't see the shame or the embarrassment in doing that. If you look at England last night, which we're going to come to later, there's plenty I could say. You know, I've never made any notes with a pen and paper. I stored them in here. I caught the highlights, but yeah, always thought. Just going back very quickly, Joe, to the top four. Always thought Liverpool were like one of them. You know, like had the class.
Yeah.
The pedigree and the class. And, you know, like when you do, I used to love a day at the races, not a gambler, not a big gambler, but just like the spectacle. And it's one of them where you've got like a 6 furlong sprint and it's like maybe a class 1 race or a class 2 race, but there's a class 1 horse in it. And then what it do is just like gallop for 5 furlongs and then it just give a little tap, the jockey, and then just it'd streak. The horse would streak into the lead, you know, and that's what I thought some Liverpool up with regards to their end of season run. I always thought they could do it. I just got 3 and 4 round the wrong way.
Yeah, it's a shame for Leicester because I mean I know they had a successful season winning the FA Cup, but you know, sort of same sort of thing happened this season as it did last season. They just got edged out. I suppose you could say the same thing. Well, not just got edged out, but certainly West Ham tapered off, but maybe that was to be expected. But I guess slightly disappointing for Brendan Rodgers, I guess, to not, you know, push on from last season to finish in that top 4. I mean, Chelsea scraped him by 1 point, didn't they, in the end, like down to the last game of the season.
Yeah, if anything, it would have been, I think, really and truly, with all due respect, more disappointing for Chelsea. Because I think like I was looking at the outlay in the last calendar year of all the clubs, and Chelsea is still near the top. With regards to their financial outlay. Stuff, I think I'm right in saying it was 200 odd million. But anyway, you know, you've always got to fancy them against Leicester to win the FA Cup, and they come unstuck. So I just think, like, you look at it and you think to yourself, well, is he talking it up? Is he trying to be positive, as in Brendan Rodgers? Hide his disappointment. Give everyone a G, which is his job to do as manager. I just think, it was good, honest, decent management. They dropped from out the top 4 and got 5th again, but it got silverware on the sideboard with the FA Cup. You know what I mean? So, you know, fair play to him. Fair play to him. It's just, I suppose it would have been disappointment. But then I'm looking at possible list of signings, and again, it's cute, it's clever management, and people try and give it a name.
Injuries as well. You know,
the way he managed them, Joe. Yeah. I was actually I was going to make a point of mentioning that because how they had such a catalogue of injuries. I thought it was very clever the way he sort of papered over the cracks and so like galvanised it, if you like.
And I suppose does that come down to philosophy in the club and a playing style, regardless almost of the playing staff. You have a style of play, and whoever comes in knows how to fit into that style of play, as opposed to picking 11 good players, individuals really, that create a solid side. But then once they come out, the other players just aren't up to it individually. Yeah. Can you kind of raise players' output and performance by imbuing and creating a style of play? That makes sense. Across the squad.
Does make sense. Yeah, it does make sense. You should, and you should be able to. And it ain't for me to tell anyone their business, but for me, that's how it should be. You know, basically, back in my time, I wanted to produce well-educated footballers who could slot into any system. But then what you've got to do, you've got to try and have what you call a blueprint, first team, most certainly the reserves, and maybe what would now be the under 23s or the academy players. Like as apprentices, or what we used to call the YTS, as they come into their second year, you've got to start getting them ready for, especially at a club like Leyton Orient where I was, you've got to start getting them thinking about getting them ready for first team football, and keep the conveyor belt turning. So as a consequence, it makes sense to have the same sort of similar type of playing style to the first team. Yeah, I mean, I thought it's been quite clever, but at the end of the day, it's just common sense. You know, when they were talking about, I was listening to the thing very quickly. I was listening to the playoff final on the radio, Brentford, and they're going on about this money ball, and they're going on about Ian Holloway tickled me. He said, "Oh, you know, it's a blueprint for football, for the rest of football." And with all due respect, I mean, it's like I've said on previous podcasts. I've had no credit, no respect for my foresight and vision in previous years. To me, it don't have to be called Moneyball. It don't have to be called blueprint for the rest of football. To me, it's just common sense. But the bottom line is, every football club's got to have its own agenda, and that's what I was trying to do. It makes sense to get. So back to Brendan Rodgers again, looking at their list of potential signings, you're talking about getting in players who you can influence, and then have a possible long-term future and or possible massive resale value once you've, you know, sort of polished all the rough edges. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
it's funny, isn't it? Because I know you've done a lot of jobs at Leyton Orient, and it I suppose that's given you a really good insight, because it seems like you do have, it's a sort of homogenous animal. You know, you need, the recruitment has to be right. The recruitment has to be intertwined with the style of play, which needs to be rolled out, not just in the first team, but to the levels below that. You know, it all needs to be harmonised. And if one bit that doesn't sit right, if the recruitment isn't in line with the style of play or what you know, the training and coaching regime, things that are awry, and then it only takes a little problem to cause teams to lose and drop points. So it's funny, isn't it? But I don't know whether it's.
Well, it's not just that, Joe. Sorry to intercede. It can start rot. It can start a rot within the club. I mean, I'll challenge anyone in terms of a debate. The previous incumbents, Peter Eustace and Frank Clark, as managing director, but particularly Peter Eustace. Listen, one or two are all right. So, like someone like Colin West up front, bless him, he was a sole contributor of goals. Fantastic habits, fantastic guy, fantastic professional. So, elder statesmen like that, you don't mind having them around the ground. And then possibly someone like Ian Bogey, possibly someone like Glenn Cockrell. You don't mind having them around to influence a younger side. But then when I look
at their role, isn't it? Their role is to be a mentor. Their role is to be someone that younger players look up to as a good pro, a very good pro they can learn from.
Yeah.
So they've got
but like buy into what you're doing. And like, you know, when you're not in the room, like, help broaden the education of the youngsters. What I mean by that, I mean like football IQ, football education, not educating them in nonsensical bullshit like you're starting the Tuesday club, going out drinking and eating pizza until you puke. It's no good to me. You know what I mean? Which is what happened. So the bottom line is, if you sign the wrong people, it's like there's absolutely nothing in the plus column. It's all in the minus column. Their age is against them, so they've got no resale value. They've got bad habits, so you can't influence them. They're set in their ways, you can't influence them. The bad habits will rub off and become bad habits in younger players, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean? And then the obvious, apart from no resale value, the obvious other financial aspect is the fact that they want big money to come, big money to sign on, and relocation expenses. You know, that was at a club that was hemorrhaging money. So it's imperative, like he's doing, someone like Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, they've got this list of potential young signings from all over Europe. And if they're anything like the guy, who is it? Is it Fofana?
Yeah.
Is it his name? Yeah, if they're Fofana. Anything like him, it's solid gold. It's solid gold.
Yeah, and it's that identifying talent that not only from a footballing point of view, but from a mental point of view, that can be moulded and nurtured and be willing to take on that sort of coaching.
You're buying. Listen, Joe, you're buying money. You're buying money. You're buying money.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Because even if they've only got to have 2 or 3 good games in the Premier League, if they've come from a foreign league, it's a lesser league like the French league, they have 2 or 3 good games in the Premier League, they've probably gone up 20% in value just by having 2 or 3. It's like the opposite of driving a car off the forecourt when you buy it. As soon as they play a few good games, the price has gone up anyway, isn't it? Because they've proven they can play.
I'll give you, for instance, another, for instance, lower down. I rang my brother-in-law yesterday, right? So he's on a firm footing, firmly in charge, runs a club from top to bottom at Haringey Borough, which is like right down, Ryman something, Premier Ryman League, what used to be the Ryman League Conference South or something.
I played against him back in the year. So
anyway, he's plucked a kid from obscurity, done a deal with Sutton, centre off, big mixed race kid, built like the proverbial brick shit house, but like a good athlete with it. Can head the ball, pass the ball with both feet, reads the game, bosses people. Sutton took a chance on him. He's made himself a fixture there. They've got promoted to the Football League from the conference, national conference. And now there's a couple of clubs he named, Coventry and Portsmouth, who are looking at him. Right, so the point being, it's a double-edged sword. It's about getting in the potential and honing the talent, right? And then you've got to be sensible, because you think to yourself, well, a football league club's not really going to take a chance, although I would. They're not really going to take a chance on, because if I was, say, like director of football at somewhere like Leyton Orient, that would be part of my remit. You've got to cast a net like long and wide, and even if it means them coming in, unlike years ago where I disagreed with it, with top draw managers and their scouting staff. Oh, can you let him come in training for a week, like we did with Luke Weaver, the goalkeeper at Sunderland? Went to Sunderland, they ruined the kid. He was 16. They ruined the kid. Yeah. So like I'm like giving it to people like Peter Reid. Well, what's the matter with your scouting staff? Don't they know what they're looking at? All this come in and let him train for a week. You know what I mean? So there's a little snippet that I never put in the book. Anyway, you know, your staff, your coaching staff and your scouting staff should know what they're looking at, and they should have the courage of their convictions, right? But latter day, the point being, if you go that low down to somewhere like where Haringey are playing, right? And if I was, say, like director of football at a lower division club, what is now like obviously tantamount to the 4th division, somewhere like Leyton Orient, then you say, well, you know, you've got to build these relationships. Lo and behold, I think he said Portsmouth and Coventry are looking at the kid. Although initially, you know, they didn't want to take a chance on him in the first place. But then the way you box it clever is, as a consequence of the standard, you can't ask for fees. You can't ask for transfer fees. But what you do, like my brother-in-law's done, he's put in a massive sell-on clause. So if Sutton do well or he does well at Sutton, and someone comes in and buys him, they get a big chunk of the transfer fee. Yeah. So you know, it's about organising your management of situations. And I just think, like, you know, the way they got it, what you're saying about the culture at Leicester, I think it helps when you're working for good people, I think.
Yeah, and it seems, fun enough, it's not something I would have naturally levelled to Brendan Rodgers, because he has flitted from club to club. But it does seem like a long-term view. It does seem like that there's a solid structure at the club that he's formulated. But I guess the question remains, if he leaves, and you know, obviously the Tottenham role's available, whether or not he'll go, I don't know. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that. But other jobs will become available because he'll be in demand. Does all that go to waste? All that, you know, how do you prevent it going to waste as a director of football at Leicester?
He has to succeed, right? First and foremost, which he has this season. He has to be clever and cute to rebuild a few tatters of what might be perceived as his reputation, borderline or / criticism, right? Let me explain it. He was at Liverpool. They were running away with a league. And my opinion is, it wasn't the Gerrard slip. It was the damage was done at Crystal Palace when they was 3-0 up and ended up drawing 3-3. So he literally, him and these group of players, where it was very, all these modern continental expressions, expansive, expressive football going forward. But you've got to get both ends right. And he didn't. And they basically snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Before that, Watford and Reading. So he managed his career in terms of, like, he was a little bit of a gypsy, which is fair enough. I've known coaches like that. You go where the contract is. Fair enough, you know what I mean? Because it's a silly little game that people have, you know, managers and coaches gone, well, if you want to play it like that, we'll play it like that. And they just go flip from club to club or from employment to employment. He got slaughtered for leaving Celtic, but he wanted to come back down south and get back in the Premier League, which he's done. He probably could have stayed at Celtic and just kept winning trophy year after year after year. But he set himself new targets and new goals. And then I'm reading an article on him the other day as I'm catching up with the papers, and he says, I'm going nowhere. I'm very, very happy here, right? But then you've got to ask yourself within. So that's great PR putting it out towards the supporters, and then they're on the crest of the wave of almost qualifying for the Champions League, but finishing 5th and winning the FA Cup. So that's all positivity. But at the same time, you also dare I say it, a little insight, which I was lacking at the time. You protect your own career. So he'll read the script, and if it looks like it's going to go a little bit belly up, then it make the call to his agent or his representatives, and the word will go out. But at this moment in time, after 12 months of, from what I can gather reading between the lines, persistently courting him, he's not interested in Spurs, and rightly so. It's a basket case club. It's a basket case club.
Just quickly on that.
Hence the apology from Levy. You know, we lost sight of our core values, and we lost sight of our playing blueprint, etc. Paraphrase, obviously, but you know, along the lines of like our identity, and we concentrated too much on the stadium. Well, that's complete and utter garbage, nonsense. That's an insult to my intelligence, and I'm not even a Spurs supporter. You know what I mean? It's his job to juggle both. So when they start pointing the finger at coaches and they start pointing the finger at managers, just remember there's people above that, and they talk about coaches and managers managing up, right? Well, I've never seen that. All you need when it comes to managing up, you just say, like the last job I walked out on, if we lose 2 or 3, have I got your support? Yes or no? I got called into the office after playing 4, won 3, drawn 1, scored 12, conceded 2. And then, in inverted commas, I'm not happy with the way we're playing. So I said, well, what chance have I got if we lose 2 or 3 on the spin? We're undefeated. Yeah. We only just started the season. Well, it's all this managing up bollocks, which it is, right? That's paper talk. Media are stoking it. I'm just saying, like, well, I can, if I've got the backing, I'll know that I'm organised and calculating enough to get my shit in order. But can you keep your house in order? Do you know what I mean? And he obviously can't. Vastly overrated. All this tough negotiator, blah, blah, blah. That means nothing. It's like I've said before on previous podcast, Joe. It means absolutely nothing if you've got like a 0 net spend or a 0 balance because you're a tough negotiator, but you don't even get in the Champions League with one of the most prolific trophy-winning managers of all time. Then there's got to be a stewards. Questions need to be asked.
Well, he's ringing up Pochettino as well now to try and get him involved so that he can, or get him back so that he can save Kane from leaving. But that shows you where his strategy lies. Do you think people have said, can managers go back? Is it a mistake to go back to a club? What's your thoughts on that?
I would make an exception myself, but the rule of thumb is like you should never go back. That's in football, it's like almost like an unwritten rule. And my personal belief is he's a myth anyway. You know what I mean? He's very, 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 very extremely good with people. And Harry's dad has said to me, you know, when him and Harry's representative, which is basically his brother Charlie, when they walk into the training ground, he'll stop what he's doing. He's talking to like 6 members of staff, and he just go, "Excuse me for a minute," and he'll make a beeline and meet them and greet them and say, "Come and sit down and have a cup of coffee," and make a fuss of them and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? But if you look at the 5 years at Southampton and 5 years at Spurs without winning a pot, you know, feel good factor, nice bit of football, gets on with everybody. Yeah, lovely. I'll be honest with you. And I think that's it in a nutshell. Although I really have come to love him later on in life. The only success I had as a player, I was at loggerheads with him at Chelsea. Then we met again when I was at Leyton Orient and he came there. That was Brian Eastick. And he rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. But he was a very, very good organisational, successful coach.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have someone who people might think is a bit of a bastard. But you know what? I've got a medal to show for it. It's what I said to Harry's dad about 6 years ago at a family party. Because we met them through my oldest daughter's in-laws, and they come to all the family functions and barbecues and kids' birthdays and Christmas do's and firework nights and all that. I just said to him, he's got to get out of there. I'm predicting now, and I'm going back 6 years. I'm predicting now it will implode. There's something about the club that's there's a smell cut. Like one of my phrases is there's a bit of a waft coming off the pond permanently. There's something a little bit Larry Barraboy about the gaff, and I'm telling you now. All right, money, it's taken care of, but the game's about money and medals. He won't win anything. It'll implode. Again, no respect for me foresight and predictions. It'll implode. Pochettino will leave, and Harry will be left with just money but no medals. Yeah. He told me he could have gone to a club when he was 22, and he turned them down because they're also in the Premier League. And I said, well, he should go to one of my old gaffs where he's guaranteed to win pots, silverware medals, Chelsea. He went, no, that won't happen. I don't think that'll happen. He said, not another London club, but there was not another London club, he said, but there was another club he could have gone to, and he turned them down. He said it'd be nice to win something with the club where he grew up.
He insinuated to Neville on that now infamous interview where he said he basically wants to leave, is that he wouldn't go abroad. So that only leaves.
I don't think he will. It's a tight, Joe. I'll tell you, it's a very tight knit firm. His dad oversees everything. They're lovely people, proper family unit, proper people. Mum runs the fan club. Brother helps do the commercial side. Dad oversees the lot, and it's a lovely sort of dare I say it, like a romantic innocence about it. I love it. I mean, he's never come out to any of the do's. H has always been at home with his missus recuperating.
Yeah.
And but the old man Pat, he always told me this, like, we have good conversations, and he knows that I can keep things in confidence. So, yeah, I just think like a couple of names cropping up. One of the clubs he could have gone to when he was 22.
Yeah,
but I don't think. Look, you're right what you say. I don't think he'd go abroad. I don't think. I said at first I thought it's with Pochettino there. He'd go to PSG, but then when they get pipped by Lille for the French league. Even with the players they've got, even with the financial clout they've got, I think that says a little bit more about, confirming that I think like it's not enough just to be a lovely guy.
Yeah, and it's not like Barcelona and Real Madrid are tearing up trees either. You know what I mean? So that they haven't got the draw they used to have either. So,
well, you look at him as a player. What an out-and-out cynical, horrible, nasty, vindictive piece of work he was. But he's galvanised them, and he's got, for years now, organised, really tight-knit unit. Simeone I'm talking about, and I thought a lot of clubs could have done worse. But I just think, like, being Argentinian, he's automatically Spanish-speaking, and it suits him to stay there for years now. And they managed to sort of wrap it up, which is fantastic.
Just on European football, then Champions League, all English final. Tuchel done it again. Very good record against the top sides, particularly against Man City. It's the third time he's beaten Guardiola, and I think he's beaten him another 2 or 3 times before that with previous clubs. So he's got the sort of hoodoo over him, or the voodoo, whatever it's called. Just thoughts on the game and the way the two teams set up. I know you've briefly spoken about, sort of the organisation. It's not rocket science necessarily that Tuchel is imparted on Chelsea, but maybe a quick word on Guardiola and how he set up, because it seemed highly odd, borderline arrogant, his approach to the game in terms of
performance. Yeah, what you mean with regards to?
No defensive midfielder. I mean, It was a very, he didn't play Rodri, he didn't play Fernandinho. Obviously, he didn't start with a centre forward. He played Kevin De Bruyne up front, essentially in that number 9 position. Aguero on the bench. He then brought on Jesus in before Aguero. It seemed like a last-ditch desperation thing. He brought Fernandinho on, in the second half. It just very odd approach to the game. And seemed to. Unfortunately, he nullified his own threat, because they didn't seem to really. I know Chelsea defended well, but didn't seem to. Apart from one chance Foden down, I think Rudiger made a brilliant block. Yeah. Really making it. I created other chances, but yeah, just I suppose just a word on Guardiola really, and he can't seem.
Well, listen, that can happen. I mean, you're probably talking about one of the world's, if not the world's, greatest coach.
Well, is that? Can that be levelled at him if he's won 1 Champions League?
Well, me personally, I've been guilty of jumping on the bandwagon and saying it, only from the point of view with regards to he stuck to his beliefs, and he's coached the same thing all the way through from when he had the kids at Barcelona. So it's like being in the right place at the right time, and it goes back to what we said with regards to influencing players, influencing people, and then it gives them a playing blueprint to the extent where they're basically unstoppable at Barca, and then he goes on to Bayern Munich, and you're talking about another country where it's a 2-horse race, and run away with the league.
Yeah.
I think they won a double, but he never won the European Cup. Then he comes to City and does the same again. Yeah, so you're right. But I mean, you know, it's in terms of that level, the players are all much of a muchness, and I think that's when the coaches have a very, very important part to play. It helps if the opposition coach shoots himself in the foot with no real recognised centre forward, false nines or whatever in the case of De Bruyne, no screening midfield player. Yeah, I mean, obviously it helps if the coach does someone like that. I just think like what he'd done, he probably felt a little bit like he'd been a bit on the backside with regards to the FA Cup semi-final and tried to sort of shake the bag up a little bit, and then we give the opposition something to think about. Whereas he's got that, you know, for sure, although he looks like he's got a bit more personality. Latter day they have the likes of him and Klopp at Liverpool. But they've got that. Germans have got that sort of forensic thought process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and impersonal. I was just going to say, do you think Guardiola's got? Is there a glitch in the armour, which is a mental weakness when it comes to taking things personally? He seems to get very riled quite easily in interviews after games when they lose. A little bit of petulance. And you're right, it seemed like he did shake up the bag, but why is he worrying about them? Everyone
in football's like that. That's the short answer. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you are. If an interviewer presses the wrong button on the wrong day, I'll guarantee anyone in football, I mean, you ain't going to get anyone more placid, more even-tempered, more docile, dare I say it, docile than Roy Hodgson. I remember him doing an interview. And he looked the thing straight in the eye and he said, "You're taking the piss."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He asked him a question, a leading question, and Roy looked at him and you see that he's a little bit like, his shoulders went up and his jaw tightened and he went, "You're taking the piss." You know, so it doesn't matter on any given day.
Yeah.
For the simple reason, here's the common denominator, Joe. Everybody in football, if they've got anything about them, that is, if they're a player, if they're a coach, if they're a manager, they want to win. They don't like losing. And on any given day, if someone asks someone the wrong question, yeah, for sure. I mean, not on that level, but I was accused even as a player. You're too sensitive, because inevitably, if you've got anything about you, what you do, you question yourself. You go over things and you question yourself first. So that leads to the next thing, right? If you're one of these I'll play for some right fucking Mickey Mouse man managers. They threatened they was man managers, but they were fucking Mickey Mouse, like Peacock and Clark, Peacock at Gillingham, and Clark at Orient, Hurst at Chelsea, who I fell out with. I don't need you on top of me. If I'm a pro, whereby I've already questioned myself, and I've got enough about me, or I had enough about me to say, yeah, no, that's not good enough. That was unacceptable. Right? I've got to do more. I've got to do more on the training field, or I've got to make sure I'm better next time. You know what I mean? So I don't need you fucking because you think somebody else can't take stick and your shoulders are broad enough and blah, blah, blah. And it's all bollocks. You know what I mean? So the bottom line being, if you've got anything about you, you'll question yourself to begin with. What you don't need someone else coming in on you, which is something I realised about some of the mistakes I make. So management sometimes is about what you don't say rather than what you do say. Right, so it's the same if it's a manager at the pinnacle of the game. It makes sense if you're interviewing them. For me personally, I'm looking at the Punditry last night. I want technical issues. I want to address technical issues. I want the manager, or one of the perceived best coaches in the world, in Europe, if not the world, I want him to make coaching points. So I would ask questions along them lines. I would never get... I would endeavour. I would like to think I would never get personal with anybody.
Would you? I'll tell you what else. Just made me think of it. The way you just explained about sort of questions you'd ask. What does seem to have gone out of the game, I guess, not coincidentally, because Alex Ferguson's retired, is the mind games. I mean, he was murdered for mind games, wasn't he? I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, I suppose Mourinho was into it, but he's now not in the Premier League. But you don't seem to get many mind games between top managers anymore, trying to sort of throw them off the scent, mentally destroy them before they even put their players on the pitch. But
Mourinho, I met, he's a piss taker. Mourinho's a piss taker. Let me tell you why, right? And he's also like a Mediterranean guy, and I've been around Eastern Mediterranean with my wife's people and all that. They brought stuff to this country that never existed. You know, they would bring, even when I was coaching the Sunday side, they would bring families into it. They would bring mums and sisters into it. That shit never existed when I was growing up. And it is shit. It's the lowest of the low. But then you look at Mourinho, when the point being, they can turn spiteful. So you look at when he was over in Real Madrid. No, he was over in Real Madrid, but because he's a little short arse, so it doesn't matter if he's a short arse or not. It's in here. It's like he used to say, Robson used to say, it's the fight in the dog, not the dog in the fight. Yeah. Right. But remember when he jabbed the geezer in the eye? Then he goes up to Conte after I think Man United beat Chelsea at Old Trafford. He goes up to Conte knowing that he wears a syrup, and he ruffles his hair. He pats him on the head. I know he's taking the piss. You know he's taking the piss. Everyone knows he's taking the piss. Conte knew he took the piss. I'd have swiveled round and told him to fuck off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just to put him in his place. Just do yourself a favour and fuck off before you get hurt, or I'll see you up the tunnel. You understand? Then the other one was, listen to this. The other one, when you do the rounds and you travel a bit and you talk to different people and different people talk to you in the cab, but even before that, right? That is a swear word. Right. So when he's getting stick at Man United off the press week after week after week after week after week, they won a very, very important game, and he's walking down the touchline, and you know the geezers that carry the thing with the body belt with the camera that goes like that, and you could see him backing up, and as he's walking down the touchline, he's going like that. So basically, he's saying what he's saying, which I'm not going to say on camera. He's saying what he's saying to all the press, all the media, you, the cameraman, everybody, all the pundits sitting in the studio. Who, by the way, are two bob. Most of them are two bob, the pundits. And then you look at Ferguson with his mind games. Simple. You do a Kenny Dalglish. I thought it was fantastic. A couple of times when people tried it with him when he was a manager. He just said, "Well, if I was them," he said, "I'd just worry about what's going on at their own football club." And then what you can do, you can play mind games. I'd throw that in. If I was him, as in Ferguson, if I was him, I'd worry about what's going on at his own football club with the stories I've heard, right? So then, you know what I mean? If he throws one out, throw one back. Because we all know the stories, what went on at Christmas parties and all the rest of it. And I even know the names involved. And I'm fucking down in London.
Yeah. No, it's just, it just seemed the way Guardiola set up, it was almost like he'd been done mentally. Because he'd lost 3 in a row, you know, he felt like Tuchel had the hoodoo over him, so he's completely gone, you know, left field with his formation and completely nosed it for himself.
It's on the day, Joe. It's on the day. Listen, two very quick things, right? I don't want to go all fucking, profound and philosophical, but it's like I said in my book, right? But just to throw one out there very quickly, we sold out, and they're only available on Amazon now, right? With regards to the books, I'm highly delighted. I've done really well out of the bank holiday and lockdown, right? Good. So that was fantastic. But like I said in my book, right, the only guarantees in football there are no guarantees. There's more variables in football than in any other sport. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you've got anything about you as a person in life, but just as importantly, if not more so in football, right? Education is like a continuum. It's a lifelong thing. It's not an overnight thing. So what he'll do, he'll learn from it. He'll learn from it, and he'll come back again next year. I mean, next year after the Euros, you're going to see some unbelievable. Let's see who really is made of the right stuff in terms of their coaching and management. Let's see who's really made of the right stuff, because there's all these other things that are going to come into play now, like the approach to the Euros with regards to rest and recuperation, how you manage players, how you rotate players. Can they slip into the system? Can you change the system? Can you change the system again within the game, within the 90 minutes? It's second, like I've always philosophized, 2, 3, 4 times, which is where I think we're going to be found wanting with England.
Okay, just quickly then, predictions for next year for the league. Yeah. Can you pick a winner? And can you pick a team to watch who's going to outperform? A bit like West Ham did this season.
Too early to say. I want to wait and see. I want to wait and see who signs who. No, the reason I say that, let me tell you something. Listen.
You should be a politician, John.
Listen. You've hit. Listen. I wish I could be, because you've got Muppets running everything. You've got like two Bob Muppets running the country, two Bob Muppets running London. I went on Twitter last night. I'm going to myself. Listen, I'll doff me cap, right? To the education secretary who resigned. You want to talk about politicians, right? They said about the 1.4 billion pound budget to make sure, in inverted commas, kids don't get left behind in the world education, right? And yet they can find just under 30 billion for basically a disorganised rabble in TFL up until the year 2030, who have been permanently bankrupt and in the red, and are still operating. So work that one out. But you've got Khan, who's overseen it all, and then Johnson before him, who's now Prime Minister. It's an absolute clusterfuck shambles, like the TFL, right? And we can find 30 billion for these, but we can only find 1.4 billion for the future of the country, which are our kids, our children. Although I've got no children of school age, but I've got a grandson coming up. You know what I mean? So it's not all about what you can accumulate, and it's not all about. I see on a T-shirt once at Leighton Orient, Mark Wald. He who dies with most toys wins. It's not all about what you can get your hands on. Sometimes it's about what you leave behind. Yeah, but very quickly, I want to see what happens with Haaland and Kane. I'll answer your question. I ain't frightened of answering your question, but Manchester City need a focal point. They need a proper centre forward. They need someone there. So if they get hold of Kane or Haaland, I think it could be game over. Whoever signs for him will have 35 tap-ins.
Yeah. Fair enough. And what about one to watch then? Anyone from that's come up? Obviously, what is it? Watford.
Arsenal. Arsenal. One to watch Arsenal. Yeah. What they fucking
Arsenal. Yeah.
What an embarrassment! A disgrace. What's an embarrassment? It's nothing. And I said about Arteta, and he said he's right what he said. He's only saying what I've said. You've got to look at yourself. And he said we're going to take a long hard look at ourselves in the summer in terms of everything. Yeah, I'm telling you now, that's another borderline basket case. They've got a lot of players who are not Arsenal standard. They've got a lot of players who are not good enough. The same areas, the same problem areas are still the same problem areas. Goalkeeper, right back, centre back next to Gabriel. A screening midfield player, a creative midfield player, and two aging forwards who need to be replaced. Right. So I've only been saying it. I've only been saying it for 4 or 5 years. So even when he was Aubameyang was 27, 28, I was saying, right, now you've got to look for the next one. Yeah. Right. While you're getting goals out of Lacazette and Aubameyang, you now got to look for the next one. Yeah. Right. And they ain't done it. The recruitment's been diabolical.
Yeah. So then, all right. So we won't do one to watch. What about one?
Well, there is one to watch. They might by some miracle jump from 9th
Do you think they will?
To 5th.
Do you think? Doesn't sound like you think they will. What about one that you think is going to really struggle, arguably go down? That I mean, the one I'm thinking of is someone like a Palace, because you mentioned on the previous podcast, Hodgson and Lewington going.
Yep.
It's a big loss for them. So that they've been just about keeping their nut above the waterline. So that'd be interesting. But I don't want to put teams in your mouth. But any other clubs like that, Wolves had a bad season.
Yeah, I mean, people will know from previous podcasts and basically what I intimated in my book. We all say things we shouldn't at times. We've all been a bit silly, and we've all been young and obnoxious. But like with that in mind, like Ray Lou is not really like, although I forgive him, not really my favourite person. I knew him as a loud, drunk, obnoxious teenager who was lucky enough to get in Chelsea's first team. And Eddie Mack squeezed the absolutely last drop out of the lemon when I look at that side that got promoted. But credit where it's due, absolutely nothing short of miraculous job that him and Roy Hodgson's done there. And I think looking in the background, I remember a face from the past in the dugout. I think the goalkeeping coach would be Dean Kiley, ex-Charlton. The staff, he's quite right what he said. They've been magnificent. Roy Hodgson's been magnificent. And I think that there's a lot to be addressed. It says a lot. Someone, fantastic column one of the sports writers, he said about Benteke in a purple patch, a streak of form that just happened to coincide with the fact that his contract's up for renewal. So it says more about the player. If you, as a player, you should, me personally, once I got over, I had maybe a troubled 18 months all the way through my career, a troubled year, maybe 18 months, where I wasn't single-minded enough, got in the wrong company, was a little bit leery, a little bit brash, too loud, went off the rails, lost me way. But after that, before that and after that, I trained with the same and played with the same intensity every single day. And that's how you should be as a footballer. It says a lot about Benteke, the fact that all of a sudden he's pulling out goals, his finishing's better, he looks sharper, he looks more like hungry, he looked like he had more appetite for the game because his contract's being renewed. And I think that probably says a lot for a lot of them. A lot of them, me personally, I'd just go bosh. If you, as long as you've got the replacements, because I think there's been too many. Well, basically, it's Roy's organisation that's got them through.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think he's had a bad injury. Eze. Yeah, I had that injury, ruptured Achilles. That's a bastard injury. And if he had the same as me, 100% tear, what they'll do is surgically repair it by overlapping it and stitching it together. And he's got a long, hard road ahead of him in terms of like, once that's happened, it's got to be stretched out again, but at the same time, toughened and strengthened. So he was making great headway. So it's a crying shame for the kid.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one. But you look at the Eastern Bloc skipper. Sorry, mate. Sorry, beg your pardon. Go on.
That's like David Hay. Same thing happened to him, but he ended his career, didn't it? He'd done his Achilles. David Hay, the boxer.
But is that right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember his leg? It went, didn't it? In I think the fight with Tony Belling. He went. But yeah, he wasn't the same fighter again because obviously he couldn't put the weight on the. You know, the tram line. He couldn't put the weight on it, and he weren't the same boxer again because he'd done his Achilles. So it just shows you how, like you say, you've had it.
Or maybe he knew his time was up.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it was a big toe that was the problem.
I remember that. You're right to bring up Palace. You're right to bring up Palace. Yeah, I think I said a couple of things. If they don't address it, get the right person in, and they've tried them all, haven't they? What's he? He's the Dutch national manager now, isn't he? The geezer.
Koeman. Oh,
De Boer.
Yeah, De Boer. Yeah.
He come in, then he made a pig's ear of it, and then Sam come in and he bought a Dutch fullback who flits in and out. Yeah, so it's like I said just a couple of 3 episodes back. If they don't get it right in terms of the right replacement recruitment, I think that's a blinding shout from you. A blinding shout.
Okay. Any other teams? We've got to wrap this up. Any other teams to watch or any other predictions for next season? You've heard it here first, everyone.
I'm gonna keep me powder dry. I'm gonna keep me powder. I don't think. I was. Well, no. Listen, if we're gonna say, if we're gonna talk about the thing management and pushing on and recruitment and spirit and engendering a team ethic, I think like credit to them, Leeds. So they could be, like I said, I don't think they'll have a problem. They'll probably finish in the top half, which they did. I think they finished 10th. I've got nothing in front of me. This is off the top of me. Yeah. Well, there you go.
No, I've got it in front of me. Yeah, so yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so
actually, it's the same as Everton, but they finished 9th on.
Yeah, I mean, how piss poor were they, Everton? I mean, they had. I think they were like their home record was as bad as one of the relegation teams.
Yeah. Ancelotti's left the sinking ship, hasn't he?
Well, he has. He's read the script and he's had it on his toes. You think, like, I can't do anything here. When he's all they do is they very cleverly. It's talk it up, and we've got a project here. We're doing this, that, and the next, and we this and we that, and for the future, and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, they have it on their toes. Well, it's what it is. It's about looking after your own career. Yeah. It's about looking after your own career. Some people read the script early, and they're ruthless in when they cut their ties, and others have this romanticized ideology, which I suffered from.
All right. On that note, we'll leave it there. The next episode will be on England and the Euros. So all the listeners and viewers out there, check that one out. It'll be underneath on the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe as always. Hopefully you enjoyed the chat. Hopefully we'll get back more regular chats, and we'll see you later.